am I in the private part of the house?
Yes, this is sort of our sitting room, really. Though we do use it for some business things, but it's primarily the private part of the house.
Well,
yes.
thank you for having me here. I feel honoured. But it's exquisite, and I noticed here you've got the same.
Yes, we're rather addicted to the rush matting.
The rush
we
matting.
love
and
the smell.
Yeah, exactly, and the views.
Yeah,
I mean.
Yeah. Well, it's called the lake sitting room, and you can see why it's called the lake sitting room. And
if you get an evening where the sky is beautifully orange, it goes on reflecting in those ponds through, because there's actually about 12-foot difference in height between the nearest pond and the lake itself. So it goes down like that. So you keep getting the reflection coming back again.
No, it's magical.
Fantastic. And you redecorated this room, is that
right?
Yeah,
we redecorated this room, yeah. And really, it was one of the very earliest rooms to be built. So this room was literally built in about 1701 or something.
Right.
Although it wasn't exactly this form.
No, funnily enough, it was 2 rooms, and at some stage, probably in the 18th century, early 19th century, they took a wall out there.
Right.
Because there was a staircase down there.
So it's so fascinating, you know, I had to see the sort of development of, but it's been like this for a long time.
Okay,
It's been like this for a very long time, yeah.
So, but when you were growing up here, what's your memory of this room?
Well, this was my parents' sitting room as well, the lake sitting room.
And it was called the lake sitting room. And heaven forbid, I occasionally have called it the drawing room, and he gets so cross. It's not the drawing room, it's the lake sitting room.
Well, that's because
right,
the drawing
it's
room
the
is
lake
through
sitting
there.
room.
It's what we call the Gold Library now. I mean, it's all very confusing. And the names of rooms in this house have changed constantly throughout time.
Right.
I mean, and because I grew up here, of course, I tend to slightly hang on to the names from that period. But there's no reason why they shouldn't go on changing.
Yes.
It's one of our most important guest rooms, which we've just done up. Is in the night nursery, and I'm surprised you're not insisting that it remains. That we say to people, "You're staying in the night nursery." So,
Well, I think it'd be
so
rather charming.
what have you renamed that room?
Well, actually, it hasn't been renamed yet. We're trying to decide what name to call it.
Bedrooms actually tend to collect the names of people who stay in them a lot.
Yes.
So, I mean, you've been into the Admiral's room, I think. There's
Yes.
the Archbishop's room,
Yes.
there's Lady Corder's bedroom. And it goes on like that. And I think, I mean, it's a perfectly good reason for changing the name of a room. If you have a guest who comes back a lot of times and who stays there a lot, why not name it after them?
Yes, no.
Except our guests always like trying different rooms.
Right. Well, yeah, yes, I can see why. Yeah. So, you know, I've had, of course, a wonderful time here at Castle Howard so far, lots more to see, but the two of you've taken, you know, this extraordinary, you know, palace on, if you like. I mean, this is world renowned here. Everybody knows about Castle Howard. And there is, of course, the custodian, the owner of it, and do you feel an enormous sort of burden in one sense to leave your legacy? I mean, I know that's kind of how I feel a little bit.
Well, it's a huge challenge. I mean, it's quite problematic. So there's a huge conservation challenge here. I mean, one of the features of Castle Howard is it's not just the palace, as it were. It's all the other buildings, which is what makes it special. And they are all more than 300 years old.
Right.
And there are a lot of problems. A lot of the buildings were built with iron cramps in them, which they thought was a good idea in the early 18th century. As soon as water comes in, you have a problem because they rust and they expand and they break the stone. So there is a lot to do.
Yes.
And so it's a challenge, yeah. It is a big challenge.
And do you find, as far as prioritizing the list, if you like, and I know that can change, you know, up and down. It can go up and down, and then things constantly get added to it. But would you say right now what is several, because I know it's a big list of big projects that you want to see completed, you know, within?
It's a very good question. I mean, obviously, we want to tackle things which are deteriorating very fast because it might be too late if we leave them.
Right.
And there is that sort of stitch in time element with conservation. But we also want to do projects that could potentially produce income.
Yes.
So have a sort of sustainability. And we've made life even more complicated for ourselves in that both Nick and I are quite interested in nature, and I've always been a passionate naturalist. So we're actually not just looking at the built heritage, we're also looking at the natural heritage
Yes.
and, you know, what we're doing on the wider estate in terms of biodiversity and everything. So we have made the list rather long, actually.
But I think it's absolutely right, because I mean, with buildings, it's very easy to see the decay
Yes.
that's gone on. You can't, to quite the same extent, see the decay that's happened to the countryside over the past, particularly the past 70 years. But we know it's there. And
Well,
it's
we
been
know the
made
butterfly
more and more
population
apparent.
is
Yes.
depleted, and so many populations are depleted. So that is quite a passion for us, is to
Yes.
restore the natural environment as well.
Yeah.
But they go hand in hand, actually, and we've got to do both.
Right, and that's what's so unique about the UK when you compare the UK and these historic houses to other countries. You know, other countries, it's literally just the historic house and the land around it.
That's the
is
Napoleonic
gone.
code for
That's
you.
right, exactly. So here, and that's what makes the
No,
UK...
it's interesting. Historic England, someone from Historic England said to us a couple of years ago, do you remember, Nick? He said, what makes Castle Howard particularly interesting is it is right in the middle of its estate. It's still sort of intact. And that is quite unusual, actually.
yes.
And it's quite special. But of course, that's quite a challenge.
But it's something that's been there right from the word go. There's the third Earl of Carlisle, when you may have noticed the obelisk when you came in.
yes.
That was put up ostensibly to celebrate Marlborough's victories in France. But if you go around the other side of it, you'll find a stone plaque on which a bit of doggerel that he's written has been carved, which says, "If to perfection these plantations rise, if they agreeably my heirs surprise, think then on him who planted them for thee." Which is, you know, it's the point of the whole thing. He's planted these amazing avenues, and he'll never see them.
Right,
You know,
right.
the building he saw, but the avenues never.
Yeah, yes, extraordinary. Yeah, so I and that is, you know, when I visit historic houses, I'm not just looking at the fabric of the building or the interiors, but because we all have that same eye. You walk into a room as a custodian, as an owner, and you don't necessarily look at the beauty of it. You look at
Oh my
What's
God!
broken?
I know.
what's broken, what's leaking, what do I
Yes,
need to
I
fix?
know,
Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
And I think, you could go sort of insane if you're kind of too much of a perfectionist, because every day I see things I haven't noticed before that need
Yes.
attending to. And
But
it's like,
you mentioned the beauty. The fact is that you are surrounded by beauty here, and that it helps balance things
absolutely,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, and it is of course, these historic houses here in the UK in particular are set within, you know, an estate.
Yeah.
And now we are looking at ways that we can increase.
And of course, in the past, that estate produced the income to keep the house. But now,
Now-
I'm afraid, land values and everything has changed, and those estates don't actually produce enough to support the house. So you have to, you know,
So we
find
all-
other ways of
Yeah.
supporting the house.
So not
Yeah.
only do we open up the house to the public, but then we have events, exhibitions,
filming and all of that,
and-
exactly.
And you're
So-
constantly trying to evolve in as the homeowner, but with new ideas, whether it's looking at it digitally, which is what we're doing today. I mean, you know, and reaching many more people.
Well, because that's what's fantastic about everything digital, is that you can reach so many more people. So we started during lockdown doing kind of our curators started doing lectures,
Yes.
and I mean it wasn't millions of people
No.
watching them, but it was very satisfying to see the global reach. That there were people in Hong Kong watching, there were people all over the world
Yes.
watching, and that was a very nice feeling, actually.
Yes.
You do some of this yourself, don't
Yes.
you?
Well, yes, we did something similar over lockdown. I think many historic
Yeah.
houses did. We said, right, we have lost all visitor income. We have no idea when this will end. What are we going to do? And this was, of course, before the Cultural Recovery Fund, and you know, and we were in that real state of, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And you know, my husband and I joke all the time, we became plumbers. Probably like we do know how to fix leaks now very well. Nearly, I'm a certified electrician, not quite,
God,
definitely.
I'm impressed. We never got that far.
Nearly a qualified decorator, but we were able to take on, I think, the pandemic, as hard and difficult as it was. We were able to we were forced to find new ways.
Well, it's amazing how much that often does change the course of things.
Yes.
All the big houses now open for Christmas.
Yes.
And Christmas is an incredibly important part financially of our year. But really, the sort of whole business of opening for Christmas was an accident because there was a foot and mouth outbreak, and Chatsworth decided, because they'd lost so much over the year because of the foot and mouth,
They had to close,
that they would try opening at Christmas and see what happened. And they were inundated with people, and everyone went, ooh, we might try that.
Yeah.
It's
And
like
so they
we
did,
all-
and it's changed the game.
And
Yes,
everyone's
absolutely.
leaving now all their grass uncut, which we're now doing as well.
Yes.
We all did this during lockdown because we didn't have anyone to cut the grass. and suddenly everyone realised, God, it's rather nice. We've got these
lovely.
meadows and the
lovely.
public love it. So kind of like, So there were things that happened during lockdown that actually, I think, really very positive in a way.
Yeah. We didn't all just get good at making banana
Yeah,
bread. You know what I
exactly.
mean? We've been able to sort of diversify and the offer, if you like. And
Yeah.
that's what's so wonderful. And it's so the pandemic, I try to look at the brighter sides of things when you look at that, but it was this real opportunity for us to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And traditionally what these historic houses had been doing, we had to completely...
And then we were very lucky. I mean, you mentioned the Cultural Recovery Fund. It was an incredibly generous thing, actually, the Cultural Recovery Fund. It's the biggest amount of money.
It's one of the first times that I've seen government really
No,
understand
the
the
heritage
problem.
really got a
Yes.
lot during that, and it was, very needed, but hugely appreciated.
Very needed. I mean, we were sort of benefactors of 3 rounds of that. For us, it was hugely important to us. I don't think we might not have survived without it.
Exactly.
Likewise, we
exactly
were
the same.
we were standing looking at projections, and the losses that we thought we were going to make were absolutely terrifying.
Yes.
But yet we come out of it with a new roof on this wing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
extraordinary.
No. It was much needed and
Much needed,
hugely,
yeah. No.
of course, appreciated.
Yeah.
But this whole business of kind of you talked about legacy, we talked about looking after the place. It goes back to the meaning of the word heritage, really, which is, I bang on about this, but if you look heritage up in a decent dictionary, you'll find that it means what has been or may be inherited. And as custodians, we're kind of on the fulcrum of that definition. If we don't look forward as well as backwards, then eventually it's going to implode, the whole thing.
Yes.
You have to keep innovating. You have to keep finding new ways of doing things. You have to find new streams of income. You have to find new people to come and see you.
Yes.
And new audiences, exactly. Very important.
Very important new audience, and and it's
Keeping it relevant, particularly for younger generations.
Yes.
It's quite a challenge.
And that, again, talking about lockdown, when the lockdown was partially lifted and people could come to the outside of places, we started seeing a very different demographic coming here. And I think that's probably had a lasting effect. I think it has subtly altered our demographic now that we're fully open again. I see many, many more varied types of people, or younger people. It's a broader spectrum coming through the house now.
Well, there was that time, of course, where all the sort of museums and galleries were closed, the internal spaces. And I think a lot of people travelled further to get out.
Yes.
And so it was only our gardens and grounds were open, but we got a lot of people coming who probably wouldn't have come if their local museum had been open, or their,
But rediscovering the pleasure of the countryside as well,
Yeah.
of actually the kind of tranquility that can come from it, so long as there's an aeroplane going overhead at 400 feet.
we had that discussion today. But no, it is, listen, it's incredibly challenging work, these historic houses, and
but also very rewarding.
But very rewarding, and we are incredibly fortunate to be the custodians.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
know that.
Oh, yes. I always think one's got to be terribly careful that one doesn't sound as if one's complaining.
Yes, exactly,
You know, no one forces us to do it.
No.
We do it because we want to. We live in an amazing place, doing something that we think is very important.
And we think we're the right people to do it as well.
And that's quite privileged, actually. It
is.
An awful lot of people don't have that privilege.
No,
so,
of course.
one has to
remind oneself, and also, but the ability that we have to open up these houses and the wider estate so that others can enjoy as well.
Another element of lockdown, again, was that while we were here, in some ways, of course, it was the most enormous luxury, because it's the only time in my life that I have seen summer coming on with nobody else here. It really was quite extraordinary.
Because the grass was all growing and the gardens were getting overgrown and the animals were literally coming in. The deer were coming, because of course normally they stay away because there's public in the grounds.
Yes.
But I felt kind of hugely relieved and very smiley when I started seeing the public coming back.
I know. It was an amazing thing when we saw them coming down that drive the first morning that we opened up. I mean, it was real tear-jerk stuff, you know.
That has
And
given me
Nick then
chills.
had to stop swimming in the lake, which he was doing.
Oh, right, yes.
I thought, you know, they would have loved it. We could have timed it. You know, 11 o'clock, Howard in the lake.
Yes, by then, of course, I had my lockdown largeness on me.
So Nick decided
not gonna go out.
he wasn't going to go and do
Show that off.
public swim.
Did you start cold water swimming over?
Yes, he did, and that's why.
I waited till the water had warmed up.
That's why it was very sort of Russian novelish. We virtually moved from room to room and swam. And do you remember that amazing weather? We put a table up out the front there. We had dinner outside in April.
Lunch and
here
dinner
in
every
North
day.
Yorkshire.
Yes, I know.
It was incredible watching this incredible sunset over the lake. And it was for a few weeks idyllic.
Yes.
And then it started, oh my God, this is worrying.
Oh,
Where's
yes,
help?
yes.
Where's the income
Yeah.
coming from? Where are the visitors?
I thought it was just going to be a week.
Yes, exactly.
No, but we sort of soldiered through, and here we are, and here you both are, and it's just been wonderful. I have a real interest, of course, in historic houses, but I think maybe a little bit more because I'm American. We don't have the luxury of this incredible history and these, exquisite historical houses.
We have some.
We have some, but we have some. But being able to then sit down with other custodians and hear just the stories, and I learn as well. I take, your knowledge.
And England has got some wonderful country houses. I mean, it is something that one of the great things. We've got great literature.
Yes.
We didn't produce a huge amount of art and music, but the country house.
We did quite well with pop
country
music.
house.
Pop music,
We did pretty well with pop
pop
music,
music.
But I don't think we should underestimate how important the country house is to our sort of cultural tradition.
And I mean, the other great thing, of course, we have is theatre, and here we combine the two of them.
Yes.
You get Vanbrugh, the playwright and theatre owner, coming along and building a house.
True.
That's extraordinary.
It's a confluence.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely extraordinary. Well, what a treat. Thank you so much just for giving me this opportunity and this time.
It's been very nice to see you.
Absolutely
Yes.
splendid time. Thank you.